I'm going to start us off with a very hot take for today's theme, and that is that space is annoying.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm almost offended.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you talk.
You're allowed to be offended. I am trying to be offensive. Anyway, so this is a picture from James Webb, right? And if we zoom in, it's just all galaxies. And so it's not that space isn't cool. It obviously is cool. My problem with space is that it's too cool. In fact, space is so cool that it makes all the other sciences look lame. And therein lies my annoyance, right? So let's take an example. We've got geology. Look at these rocks. They are neat.
Give it
right?
up for rocks.
Yeah, rocks. All right, if somebody came up to me and they were like, oh, I study these rocks, especially that speckled one in the middle, she's good looking. I'd be like, all right, tell me more, right? But then the astrogeologist comes along. And they're like, this is a geographical map of Mercury, which is true. I went to the United States Geological Survey, and they have maps of the planets that are like real. So this is Mercury, they have the moon, they have Venus, they have Mars, and you can just go and click around and be like, wow, that's the surface of that planet.
I'm surprised to hear that Venus's surface is under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Geological Survey.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe it's an elaborate ruse, but I was wowed. So if we convert the astrogeology to what they're actually saying to you, it's I map other planets. Which is sick, right? And so then if you translate geology, it's like, I like rocks. Which, you know, if we're going to compare coolness, one of these is way cooler than the other one. So this works for every area of science. You can be a chemist, which is like, okay, but you can be an astrochemist, which is like, wow. You can be a physicist, which is like, all right, that doesn't impress me much. But you can be an astrophysicist, and it's like, come on my stage and on my show, right? And you can be a biologist, and it's like, miss me. And you can be like an astrobiologist, like, take me now, right? And the problem with this is that I'm just a biologist. And so my fragile ego just can't. I can't handle it. I can't stand up here and not be cool for you guys. So what I am going to do is I am going to sell out, and I am going to talk about life that has been to space. Wow. Ooh, I was hoping that you would ooh, and you did. I'm so happy. All right. So when I say life that has been to space, right, the first thing that I think you're probably thinking about is this literal, like, serial killer laundry list of shit that we have sent to space because we are obsessed and bored, right? And I made this slide by going through the Wikipedia page, Animals in Space. And every time that it said, oh, we sent this to space, I grabbed the picture and put it on here. And it's crazy how many things we sent to space. And the thing is that I'm not going to talk about these animals because while they have been to space, they didn't do it under their own volition. They are, in fact, victims. You think bunny rabbits and newts and spiders wanted to go to space? No, they did not. But you know, we found where they lived and we put them in a box and we blasted them off the surface of the Earth. And many of them did not return to the Earth. The one notable, I think, very fun exception is they took hissing cockroaches to space, and in the Wikipedia article, it says that one of them conceived in space, and when she returned to Earth, she had 33, what do you call it, baby roachlets? And in any circumstance, almost any circumstance, if you start with one roach and you end up with 34 roaches, it is a failure, not a success. But in this case, they were really excited about it, which I think is quite funny. So, if I'm not going to talk about these poor, unfortunate souls, what am I going to talk about? And so, this is where I would like to get technical into what been to space means. All right, so these are the layers of our atmosphere. Ooh. At the bottom, ooh, yeah, you like atmospheres. All right, so at the bottom is the troposphere. Boring. It's got so much life that it's like, whoa, get over yourself. And it's so far from space, we're not interested. Right? So then you move up, and you've got the stratosphere, and that's where planes are. Ooh. And then you move up even further, and you've got the mesosphere, and that is where meteors burn up in the atmosphere. Woo.
That's where your wishes go to die.
Oh, shit.
What do you mean?
Damn.
Because that's what you mean.
I thought I started with the hottest take, and you're like, that's where wishes die. Jesus.
Or maybe that's where your wishes come true.
Oh, okay, sure. Ooh. All right, but
This is why I need an editor.
but after your wishes die, then you find the space where the line gets blurry and is somewhat controversial. So the red line is the Kármán line, and that is the international line that is recognized as the difference between Earth's atmosphere and space. Not everybody agrees on that. In fact, the United States government thinks 50 miles is actually enough, and if you leave the mesosphere, you're an astronaut. But somewhere in there is the line where been to space is now true, right? And then you have the troposphere, or the thermosphere, and that is where the ISS is, and that's where the auroras are, and ooh, so clearly space. And I cut another layer off because it's so obviously space that, like, who cares? And it's the exosphere, and it's, like, way out there.
Only the U.S. Geological Survey has dominion there.
Oh, my God. All right. So I said that the troposphere has all the life. But just because it has most of the life doesn't mean that there isn't life in our upper layers of the atmosphere. In fact, this is a graph from a 1978 paper where they sent weather balloons up into the atmosphere and collected whatever they could find. And the first bar is boring. It's dust particles. Dust isn't alive. I don't care. But everything else is a living thing. And so it is bacteria and bacterial spores and fungal spores. And you were able to collect them and bring them on back. And they're actually somewhat okay, which is interesting, right? And if you'll notice, this is in kilometers, and I scaled it so that it meets the miles. But you're going right up to the 50-mile mark at finding life. So you're telling me that none of them, like, woo, crossed over 50 miles and then they went to space by themselves? I think they did. So why, I mentioned that this is from 1978. Why isn't there more data? It's because this place sucks to get to. It's really hard to go into the upper atmosphere. It's super dry. It's really friggin' cold, and it has a bunch of UV. And also, it's not that important in the scheme of things, like what's up there.
And that's a dig at the astronomers. What's up there?
What's up there? Who cares? But it is interesting because I found another paper where they desiccated some bacteria and they took them into the atmosphere and they exposed them to UV, and that's the, like, cyan bars. And some of them came back and they were like, who cares? Like, I'm fine. I can still keep growing. So clearly things are going up there and living. So that's pretty interesting. Life is basically sending itself up there. And the question I had was, well, how are they getting up there and what are they doing? How are they getting up there? It turns out that when you're really small, the air matters a lot and gravity doesn't matter that much at all. So dust storms will just send spores into the upper atmosphere, no problem. As to what they're doing up there, clearly nothing all that great for them, but for us, it actually makes a pretty big difference because they're great nucleating forces for, I don't know, snowflakes and hail and raindrops. And so without the bacteria and the spores and the stuff in the atmosphere, we might not have very much snow or hail at all, which is, fascinating for us. There don't seem to be any unique bacteria that are just living up there full time, but that is true on Earth, but it could be not true on other planets. It's a possible biome where other planets like Venus, where the atmosphere is kind of okay and the surface is like a literal hellscape, that you could live, possibly in the atmosphere. And that's also a somewhat interesting fact.
Agreed.
So, yeah, thank you. All right, so let's conclude, right? Space is so cool that it's annoying. I think we can all agree on that. Humans are so obsessed with sending things to space that it's kind of disgusting. Bacteria and other spores are basically sending themselves to space, which, go off, king. And hopefully you all think I'm a little bit cooler now that I talked about space.
Woo! Give it one more time for the very cool Dr. Kate Bredbenner.